And welcome to the Trade, Commerce, and Tourism Committee. It's Wednesday, August 4th, and we have four. I'm Councilwoman Janice Hahn. I'm chairing this committee. I'm joined by Councilmember Tom LaBonge. We are waiting momentarily for Councilmember Rosendahl, who I understand just pulled into the parking lot, so he should be up here any moment. We have four items on our agenda today. What I thought we would do, if it's okay, is take item 1 right now. Then we'll take 2 and 3 together since they're related, and then we'll take 4. So let's take item 1 and dispose of that.
Under item 1, the City Administrative Officer submits a report to, which is in response to motion Hahn Alarcon, which was introduced on May 28th of this year, proposing that the Council ask the LA Convention Center to report to this committee on the status of the pending award of its concession contract for food and beverage and related services at the Convention Center. Representatives of both the CAO and the Convention Center are present.
Thank you. Well, you know, before we had all the publicity about the airport concessions, we actually were talking about new concessions at the Convention Center, well over a year ago. And I'm just had put this motion in to kind of find out where we are with that RFP, where we are. I know since we started talking about the concessions, we also begin exploring the possibility of private management of our convention center, and so maybe these two concepts collided is maybe what you're going to tell me today. So what's the status? Where are we going? What do you recommend we do? I don't want to lose the idea of a new food and beverage concessions at the convention center, but I also don't want us to act prematurely if we indeed find that we want to go down the pathway of private management. So,
Diana Mangiolu, Office of the CAO.
Yes.
As part of the 3-year plan proposal, what we've for identifying or looking into identifying an alternative business model for operating the convention center. What we've done up to this point is we've hired our financial advisors who are going to help us with debt service and who are also going to help us with just looking at potential alternative models. We haven't completed our financial analysis yet. We're in the process of beginning that process, and we're going to be meeting with the convention center and LA Inc. But as part of this process, what we've also looked into is the fact how to deal with long-term contracts.
Right.
As you know, food and beverage, the food and beverage agreement is a big moneymaker for the convention center, and currently what's happening as far as from the information that we have available, the department had a contract or has a contract with Aramark. The contract was extended through June 30th, 2010, and
Right.
then what we had recommended in our report from last year
Right.
was to do a month-to-month until the department has an opportunity to select a new vendor. At this point, we've been asked to give an opinion on what that selection has not been made yet, and we've been asked to give an opinion as to what would be the best route to take, or at least our office's opinion in terms of whether we should hold off on making a selection or whether the department should move forward with it. Because
So the working group is sort of taking up that issue as well?
well, the working group is not looking at the RFP for the food and beverage concessions agreement itself, but the concept of how to deal with long-term
right.
agreements.
Okay.
And so what we're recommending today is basically to continue the food and the contract with Aramark on a month-to-month until the council makes a final decision on what we're going to do if we are going to go forward with
Right.
an alternative business plan.
When do we think the working group will have a recommendation so that the council can make a decision?
Well, Mr. Santana has has conveyed to the council on a couple of occasions that our goal is to have something, if we end up
Well, either
finding that
way, we would like a recommendation from the working group.
Sure. Yeah, and
I'm not prejudging the outcome, but when do you think the working group will have studied it enough to make a recommendation one way or the other?
we hope to have made a decision by July 1st, so that if there are any changes
Of
to
next year.
what's happening, what's taking place
July
currently,
1st of next year?
that new management would take place by July 1st.
No,
2011.
not new management. When will the working group finish their analysis and provide some kind of a recommendation?
What we're hoping to do is that in the next couple of months, by October, that we could bring forward a recommendation to
Okay.
the council.
Okay. One way or the
In
other.
terms of whether or not we're going to go to RFP.
How often does the working group meet?
Well, internally, we are working with our financial advisors on a daily basis, but with regards to the working group, we plan to have another meeting in the next month. We haven't met with our working group it's been 2 months since we've met with them.
How many meetings total has the working group had?
We've had one meeting with our big working group, and then we've had several meetings that have included the mayor's office and CLA.
Because they're not a part of the working group?
They are.
Okay, I feel like there needs to be a little more focus on the working group. I think they need direction, because I can see this month to month, sort of stretching out year to year. Over 2009, a year and a half ago, we issued the RFP for new food and beverage. Then we started having this concept when we were going through the budget problem, whether or not we wanted to have the convention center privately managed. We decided to put a working group together to kind of analyze this and come back. It sounds like there's no focus.
Natalie Broth, CEO's office. We actually went out to choose financial advisors over the summer, and their contract is being finalized now. We did go through a process to have to do that. We couldn't just choose someone. We had to go through an RFP process.
For what?
For financial advisors to help us determine.
They're part of the working group?
They are part of the working group. They're the expertise on the independent advisor who are experts in the convention center. The focus, we believe, have been there. We have meetings with the Convention Center and LA Inc. next week, and we do hope to have a report out by October on a recommendation one way or another. So the working group has been meeting. There's just a lot of different components to that working group. The analysis needs to be done. Information needs to be gathered. We want to give you as complete a recommendation as we can. But what Deanna was talking about is Miguel's plan is whatever will happen by July 1st meeting. It will be incorporated if the recommendation is accepted either way. Whatever changes are made will be incorporated for next year's budget. I think that's what we were talking about.
Okay, all right. So the current food and beverage contract expired June 30th. So now we're on a month to month. Have those that were bidding on this been told that it's been put on hold?
Yes, Philip Hill, Assistant General Manager, Chief Operations Officers, LA Convention Center, and yes, ma'am, they have been informed.
Okay, so that's probably not making all of them very happy.
Unfortunately, no, and we don't want to see them on hold either. But right now, we may have to make sure that we coordinate well with the intent of the city as far as the analysis.
Okay, well, if I were you, I would, push this working group, stay on top of that. I know there's a lot of working parts to it, but I know how things work in the city. And again, month to month could be year to year. So the convention center is important to us. It's a revenue generator. This is important. So let's get this working group to really focus and get us a recommendation as soon as possible.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Council members?
Yeah, all I want you to look at too, outside, right next to you is Stay Post LA Live. And when I've been at the convention center walking around, there's a lot of concrete. Out in North Hollywood, we have Phil's Diner, which is an old red car. Maybe you could throw a little diner right out on the steps and draft off all that action. Anybody opposed to that in the room? You got
Don't be taking my
100%.
red car from San Pedro.
No, I'm not taking it. Just drop a little diner. No one's
Oh.
opposed. Look back there. No one opposes that idea. So you give your vendors an opportunity not only to just work on the conventions, but give them some life during the day. Because LA Live now is an absolute destination. And the steps on what is the Yorty Hall, the CAO approves it right behind you. It could be a little interesting concept, and you've seen this in cities around the world where they have a very interesting, odd-looking restaurant in the middle of nowhere in a plaza, yet it creates life. Thank you.
That's called a Tomabon Instapol.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But no one raised their hand, but they were
Well,
silent, so
I
I
don't
take
think
it
that
as
was
an affirmative.
scientific.
A
Okay,
council member, a similar concept is actually under review right now.
Good, and do something nice for Gil Lindsay Plaza.
Absolutely.
And if LA gets an NFL team, then all things are off the table.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Rosendahl. Okay, all right. We do have one comment on this item. Steve Afriat.
Good morning, council members. Stephen Afriet. I represent Centerplate.
Good morning.
We appreciate the ongoing interest of this committee to ensure the fiscal health and reputation of the convention center. And we're not here to debate the merits of privatizing the convention center, nor are we here to argue for who should get the food and beverage contract. We take great issue with the fact that this process is being delayed. Food and beverage is the heartbeat of the convention center. People don't book the convention center because they like the building. They're looking for creative, interesting food and beverage, exactly what Councilmember Labange was talking about. But there's no opportunity to get anyone to invest in the convention center on a month-to-month contract. And there's no reason why food and beverage can't go forward while the working group that is obviously taking a long time continues to go through this process. If the convention center selects a new food and beverage operator, and it could be the incumbent that they select, they have a bid as well. There would be a significant front-end investment of capital into improvements by any of the bidders. There'll be greater involvement by local institutions such as Harbor Community College, LA Trade Tech, and Homeboy Industries that will provide local jobs and training opportunities to strengthen the local workforce. There'll be an increase of future value at the convention center. So if someone's looking to privatize, the city will do better if they're privatizing an exciting, successful venue instead of a tired venue that doesn't have a lot of bookings. We've talked, some of us have talked about having this venue be the place where the city family can order food and beverage for themselves. We had the incident during the Michael Jackson funeral where they were ordering sandwiches from, was it Tehachapi or Wrightwood or something?
Wrightwood, yeah.
And why not have city employees paid union wages making those sandwiches for the city family? You can incorporate that into a new contract. Even if you agree that privatization is the way to go, it's never going to be a quick process. This process has taken over 2 years. You're going to have to get input from the city council and stakeholders, including city employee unions. Prepare and release an RFP, evaluate, come back to city council. And you don't even know if anyone's going to bid on it or whether the bids will be something that's interesting to the city.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking a look at this, and we hope you'll direct the convention center to go forward on food and beverage. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So what I recommend is that we, it sounds like by October, we will have a recommendation from the working group on which path we should follow, and at that time, we can decide if we want to go forward with the bids for the food and beverage or hold off until we get a new management firm, if that's the way we're going in place. So why don't we have an update in this committee?
Next month.
September. Okay.
September. Good.
All right, 30 days. We want an update. So that gives you incentive, that gives you focus, that gives you a timeline to get this working group. Who would you consider as the head of this working group? CAO? Okay. We know you got a lot of things going on, but this is really important.
The last question. There is talk of possibly NFL stadium. Is this being taken into consideration?
Oh, that's a whole nother working group.
I understand that, but I think it should take into consideration, if we're going forward with contracts, and within the next 9 months, maybe somebody will say, this is a plan, we should at least have a reverse strategy. That's what you have in offense, Janice. You have a reverse, you have a sweep right, 25 pitch toss, reverse, in case they come to take that all down and build a football stadium. Okay, thank you. You got it. You got it, thank you.
I know what you're talking about. You always think you use sports analogies, and I don't know what you're talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking
I
about.
know exactly what you're talking about. I was an athlete.
I'm
Okay.
the one who does.
All right. So with that, we'll take items 2 and 3 together.
Item 2 is motion Zine Rosendahl, introduced on July 14th, proposing that the council ask Los Angeles World Airports, the LA Airport Police, and the LA Airport Peace Officers Association to report to council with an evaluation of security measures at Los Angeles International Airport, including a year-by-year analysis of budgeted security resources and police officer deployment from fiscal years 2001-2002 through fiscal year 2009-2010. And item 3 is motion Rosendahl-Zine, introduced also on July 14th, proposing that the council ask LAWA to report to this committee on the continuing airport security efforts at LAX and to include an update on airport police staffing and budget, as well as an update on the department's coordination with the LAPD.
Okay, thank you. Well, this both these items, and we do have Councilmember Zine is in our audience. If you would like to join us up here, that we have a fourth microphone. We'd like to give you that courtesy. We have Assemblymember Tenlu in the audience as well. This has generated a lot of interest, thanks to Charles Feldman and KNX. We've been hearing about this for about 3 months now, regular reporting on security at our airport, everything from how we deploy our police officers to corridors which were revealed to have been blocked for emergency exits. So a lot of things which have caused concern and are troubling when we hear that. And, you know, there's no secret that I've been a huge proponent of our LAX police force. During the city charter in 1997, I specifically wrote in wasn't even a paragraph, it was a sentence that kept the LAX police autonomous and independent from Los Angeles Police Department, under the jurisdiction of the management of the airport, which would be our general manager and our commission. That was challenged in 2005, I believe, when there was an effort to once again merge our airport police with our LAPD. I fought vigorously. I actually opposed the chief of police at that time, Bratton, on that issue. I opposed my own brother, Mayor Hahn.
That's not a first.
Yeah, that's not a first. And it was, again, trying to test the concept. Is it better to have LAX police separate, autonomous, independent, under their own chief, under the direction of the general manager and the commission, or is it better to have them merge with LAPD? We won that battle again. The public who voted on that overwhelmingly supported the idea of the airport police being separate and autonomous. Ironically, one of the issues was deployment. That we always felt if they were merged with LAPD, that they could be deployed other places in the event of an emergency or as need arises. We know under ComStat, our chiefs of police have put cops on the dots where the crime is, where the incident is happening, and we didn't like that idea that airport police would not be at all times in the jurisdiction of the airport. Unfortunately, one of the issues that, and hopefully you'll speak to it today, that came up recently was the idea that our airport police were actually servicing a nearby municipality, Inglewood, during a rave concert. And I know we have mutual aid But I think that was troubling to a lot of people. Again, how did that happen? Why did that happen? Was that necessary? And did that leave the airport vulnerable during that time? So we'll let you, I believe you're going to talk a little bit, give us a presentation. We want to know about leadership. We want to know about deployment. We had two of our sleuths out one night undercover who were walking through the terminals and came back with the observing that there was, they didn't see as many LAX police as they had thought in the terminals. We'd like for you to talk about where we deploy them, why we deploy them, as much as you can in the context of security. We want to know what's going on out there. We want to know, is it safe? Do the traveling public have a right to believe that we're safe? Is that a perception? Are you on top of this? Are you regularly checking in with our chief of police out there to find out how it's going, how's deployment going, and can the public be safe? That's of utmost importance. We've had reviews over the past years that have come back pretty satisfactorily and have said that, in fact, we do have a well-organized police department out there and that we are safe. There's been some concern about the RAND recommendations. Have those been implemented? Do they need to be implemented? What are we doing ongoing to meet the changing needs of security at our airport on a daily basis? So we'll let you, I don't know if you want to have any opening remarks from our council members.
Well, first thing,
but we do want to let them make the presentation, and then we'll have a lot more questions.
and we look forward to your presentation. But first, I just want to go on record and say that the letter that triggered a lot of this discussion, and I would like Marshall McLean to speak to it when it's appropriate, of your letter of June 8th, where you talk about your concerns. You said an urgent meeting to discuss the need to restore security cutbacks at LAX. That was the first bit of information that came out in the discussion. And then Dennis and I took a walk around, and there was a question of visibility. Just seeing officers in uniform, we all know that that is a deterrent just by the mere presence of them. Many of us have asked, and others have asked us. We travel all over the world, and we see more security here, there. When we get off the plane, get on the plane. LAX, it doesn't look that serious. Well, obviously, my colleague and I walked around, and we didn't see that many airport police. We saw 5 or 6 of them. We saw 5 or 6 LAPD. But then also we learned afterwards that most of the officers were manning podiums on the other side of security, and also they were plainclothes officers that obviously you wouldn't know what they were, and then there were the fellows in brown that also do a security thing. So there's all kinds of issues there, but the biggest issue for us, is it safe? Are our police who run it as LAWA doing a good job? KNX had a piece this morning with Butts questioning that. And so overall, we want a comfort level that as we go to that airport to check in and to fly out, or we come to that airport, that it is not vulnerable. We've heard anecdotal stories, my colleague and I, about questioning about vulnerability as well. So whatever you can do to give us comfort and assurance is my opening comment here, and we look forward to hearing it.
Yes, Ms. Hahn, thank you very much, and to our commission president, our general manager and director, the chief, to the officers that are all here, and Assemblyman Liu. Every day's a blessing, every day's a challenge. Yesterday, nothing happened, but today something could happen. You can't control the wind, but you could try to make everything safe, so at least the wind doesn't destroy you. People who commit these type of violent acts usually have ice in their blood, and we don't know them. And the lone wolf possibility is even more, a louder howl in the distance. So I just want to thank everybody's commitment to do the right thing and to have the right response. I will mention in the tragedies in London and Ireland, it wasn't necessarily more police officers or soldiers, but video cameras, 60,000 video cameras throughout England and throughout Ireland that stopped much of the bombing that plagued those countries. So technology is a key to importance, but I want to thank everyone for their job of yesterday and their job of today, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis, would you like to have any?
Just a couple of comments. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to
You want me to
acknowledge the airport police officers. I have great respect for you. I've got 42 years of service with the LAPD, and I know the relationship with law enforcement is very strong, not only here in Los Angeles, but around the country. And serving with the LAPD for 42 years, I hold that close to my heart. There's issues, there's concerns. Some of them are great security concerns. This was illustrated by the KNX radio reports. My motion was generated after the letter came through by the Airport Police Officers Association in coordination with Mr. Rosendahl, who represents that area. My interest in this is a member of the Public Safety Committee and a person who's concerned about airport operations. I don't blame the officers for not doing what they're supposed to do. What I blame, Chief, is the administration, not Jean Marie Lindsay, but the administration of the police department, that I have met with members of your department who have come to me in a confidential nature, and they have shown that there is a lack of support, there's a lack of direction, a lack of leadership. And my concern is that the organization that is very important to the people of Los Angeles to keep the airport safe needs to have that proper direction. People have sent me documents concerning the airport operations when it comes to security, and I would request that as a follow-up, we do an audit on arrests to see where those arrests are made, to see what those arrests are for. But clearly, and I don't want to, and Gina Marie Lindsay and I have spoken. I've spoken to your airport commission president. I put this on the responsibility of the leadership of the police at Los Angeles National Airport. Also, there's a lack of relationship with LAPD at the airport and the airport police. There's some stressful relationships that have to be resolved, but there's issues here that of concern for public safety that I don't want to put on the record, but I will be able to discuss those in private. I don't want to give hints of people how they can be take advantage of the security, but the officers are dedicated. But what I have found in speaking with personnel who come to me, and I haven't solicited this, the only thing I solicited Mr. Rosendahl, my colleague, to say, let's go to the airport and see for ourselves. Let's see exactly what's going on there. The day we went there were 45 folks deployed. We saw a total of 5, and the majority of those were at the Bradley terminal. We contacted Jean Marie Lindsay, the airport general manager, who's obviously concerned about everything at the airport. But I don't hold her responsible for what the department is supposed to do, and there's got to be direction with that department. So the issue for me is safety. The issue for me is make sure it's done right. And the command staff follows directions from the chief. And I don't know you personally, Chief, but the comments that I received from personnel is that there's some administrative issues that have not been resolved, and I think that's the crux of the matter when it comes to the deployment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, you know, not to dispute you, but under what I just spoke about in my opening comments, our organizational chart is actually would put the responsibility with our general manager and our commission. That's how it is in the city charter. The police department is autonomous and independent from LAPD, but they are under the jurisdiction of our general manager and our airport commission. So ultimately, that's where the buck stops. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Alan Rothenberg, President of the Board of Airport Commissioners, and I am pleased to have the opportunity to respond in general to the questions and comments that have been made, and also give some
Can you pull your microphone a little bit closer?
Detailed support and answers to the questions that have been raised. Let me start by saying that when our board was appointed, it was made abundantly clear to us by the council and by the mayor that even as we embarked on the long-needed multi-billion-dollar task of modernizing LAX, at all times safety and security had to remain number one. We have steadfastly stuck to that, are sticking to that, and will stick to that admonition. And so even as so many things are going on, we are not taking our eye off the ball, and we do appreciate the opportunity to double check and make sure that what we're doing correctly. I do want to say as a general proposition that post 9/11 to date, here are some of the things that have happened. We have increase the number of sworn and non-sworn officers, and we'll have details for you on that. We have virtually doubled the budget, and this is strictly LAWA. I'm not talking about other agencies that have contributed. We've put in motorcycle and bicycle forces. We have added perimeter fences and are continuing to add perimeter fences. We have put in bollards, and we'll put in additional ones as needed. We have created an innovative and much heralded, the acronym is ARMOR, but it's a vehicle inspection program that results in inspection of thousands and thousands of vehicles every month at LAX.
And one of the concerns was that has been curtailed, the vehicle inspections.
We'll respond to
Okay.
each and every one of
Okay.
these claims. To the extent that any deficiencies have been noted, we've tried to act as quickly as we can to cure the deficiency and set up procedures to make sure that they are not repeated. As you know, we have engaged not only the RAND study, but we have also brought in the experts from Ben Gurion Airport in Israel, who are the leaders in airport security.
Right.
They've given us advice and counsel, which we have taken very seriously and implemented where necessary. And so I am very comfortable that we have taken all the reasonable necessary steps on the issues in front of us to make sure that safety and security remain number one at LAX. And I agree with you, Councilmember Hahn. Yes, in the first instance, it's the police chief who is responsible for his people, but ultimately it is the responsibility of the executive director and ultimately our board's responsibility. And so we are not hiding behind that. And to the extent that there are any issues, we intend to deal with them and deal with them forthrightly. Gina Marie, you want to put a little meat on the bones?
I would love to do that.
Yeah. So you're going to go through some of the specific
Very
concerns
detailed.
that were outlined, particularly in the letter from, Marshall and Julie.
Yes, as a context, I would actually just like to get a few of the facts on the table. And I know you have a sheet in front of you that has some blue bars and some numbers on every axis of the chart. And this is a budget and staffing look at the realities of LAX. Now, President Rothenberg mentioned LAWA. We've got 3.5 airports
Right.
in LAWA. These are not LAWA numbers. These in front of you are LAX numbers only. And you'll see across the top the actual budget dollars. In 2000, that was $39.7 million for LAX. Moving across the chart to the 2010 line, this year's budget is $99.9 million, which is real close to $100 million. At that same point, we've done a bifurcation of the type of public safety staff that we have deployed at LAX. The dark blue indicates sworn officers. The light blue indicates non-sworn traffic and security officers. So you'll see that a total of 517 in 2001 has grown to now a total of 787.
What's the basic responsibility of the non-sworn security officers?
Basically, it is traffic and non-law enforcement, non-gun requiring security. But I'll ask the chief to give you a better answer than that.
There's two components to the non-sworn. They're both fall under the classification of a security officer. The majority of the numbers that we have deploy out onto the perimeters, the posts, the gates that service the airport, the AOA, the ramps, certain part of international terminals inside. The second component is our traffic control unit, and their duty is to work the curbside, push cars away, keep cars moving, unattended vehicles, report unattended vehicles so that our motor team can roll and, if need be, tow the vehicle away. But those are the two components.
And what is their uniform?
They wear a light tan shirt with dark green pants, similar to the Sheriff's Department uniform.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to point out here is the purple line that you see kind of jumping around across that chart. In 2000, we had about 68 million passengers. This purple line represents the number of millions of passengers every year. You'll see that that has been pretty dynamic over the last decade. So at the point where we were going from essentially 40 million a year to 100 million a year in airport police costs, we lost 22 million passengers. Now, that's not a situation where we're saying that the safety deployment at LAX should absolutely mirror the passenger activity, but it's another indicator. And as you can see, the commitment to the airport police department has only grown over the last decade. President Rothenberg indicated several things from a physical standpoint that we have also done to lean into ensuring that the facility and the operation there stays as safe as possible. I know you want to get to specific questions, so I'm just going to suggest a couple of things that we also have in process that are coming down the pike. We are in December, the end of December of this year, opening up an airport response and coordination center, which for the first time will give LAX a nerve center where all of the 24/7 operations have a communications hub, and that becomes kind of the nerve center for the whole operation that's going on at LAX. APD will be a part of that. The construction and maintenance folks will be a part of that, our security folks, and our operations folks, so that they are all together really understanding on a real-time basis what's going on at the airport. We are also upgrading our ACAM system, which is the card swipe system that prevents people from just going from the public area into the secure area. And we are radically increasing our camera coverage. You mentioned that, Councilman Labange. We're getting good help from TSA in being sure that we expand our cameras, and over the next 12 to 18 months, you'll see a significant increase in all of that. In addition, as we go around and improve the front of the terminals, the sidewalks, and the lighting, so that we have the central terminal area looking a little bit better, so that when Bradley West opens, the entire CTA is undergoing some kind of an upgrade, we'll be installing bollards around the rest of the central terminal area. We have already, as President Rothenberg indicated, implemented the bollard installation in the most vulnerable areas where we think there was more of an opportunity for vehicles to actually penetrate and go into the terminals. That will be completed around the CTA as we do the rest of these upgrade projects. And I think now it actually would be better for us to go with your question.
Well, I think what you haven't done yet, which I thought you were going to do, is kind of take some of these serious concerns that were raised in this letter of June 8th that Councilmember Rosendahl referred to. Talking about the RAND study that identified three most, vulnerable attacks, the large truck bomb, the curbside car bomb, the luggage bomb.
Okay.
And then the assertion that, yes?
Madam Chairman, Tim Daze, City Attorney's Office. I think if you're going to get into specifics about security, I think we should go into closed session.
Well, I appreciate your advice. I don't think we were going to be revealing any, I think what we want to hear publicly is, because I think this issue has been made very public. And I think without revealing anything that you feel is sensitive, the random checking of vehicles was asserted that we're greatly reducing that. And yet I know Rand had said that was one of the number one preventive measures we could do was the inspection of vehicles.
I could say several things.
And I think, and I think is deployment something that
Sergeant,
you
could we get the
about?
city attorney a chair so he's up here?
Is deployment something you're comfortable talking about?
Deployment, we are not comfortable talking about in public session. We're happy to do it in closed session. We're prepared to do that. I apologize for missing some of those other things.
Right.
But let me address some of those that I have already talked about in public. The ARMOR program, which is the vehicle inspection program,
right,
has not been reduced in any way.
Okay.
We embraced that about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember exactly when that was. It was in place when I got
2007.
2007. And that continues unabated in any way. And we have 22,000 vehicles a month on average that we pull over. There's been some fairly decent success in finding things that ought not be coming into the airport. And the chief...
I will tell you, one of the troubling statements in that letter was that you... told police officers at a roll call that you believed that checkpoints were not necessary at LAX.
That's not correct.
Okay.
There's not much more to say about that. It's just not correct.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. What were you going to just say?
Do you want specific figures on arrests and seizures that we've had from the armor program?
I don't have those arrests and figures. I know it's quite a bit. Well, let me back up here. A total.
Explain the armor program.
Okay, let me explain the armor program.
And the acronym.
Yeah, the acronym. The acronym ARMOR stands for Assistant Randomized Motoring Over Routes. It's a program that we have developed in partnership with USC's Center for Risk and Economic Analysis of Terrorism Events, or CREATE. Our past Assistant Chief of Homeland Security, Errol Southers, is also a fellow over at USC and used his networking over there to develop this program through their this CREATE program. It is piloted here at LAX. The program uses game theory algorithm programming to provide complete randomization of the deployment of our entry arteries into the airport. It's provided a basis for a number of slimmer systems designed to protect transportation infrastructures across the country. And it's received international acclaim by two of our Homeland Security secretaries, Secretary Chertoff and Secretary Napolitano. Now, why random versus at all the checkpoints?
Right.
Part of the study looks at how Al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations do their dirty work. A big part of their, and it's in this RAND study, is a big part of their planning is in surveilling the target and deciding the vulnerability. They usually will do a surveillance anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And then based on what they see, they will develop a plan. If we have a clear plan on putting checkpoints out at all of the checkpoints all of the time, they know that they're not going to hit in that area. So they will then go to another vulnerability. On the other hand, if we keep moving our checkpoints, and it's completely generated by the program, not humans. So if we did it by humans, we would eventually fall into a pattern that they would recognize. Because this is computer generated, it is never the same. And so then if we are a target and are surveilled, they would have a difficulty determining when we're setting up our checkpoints, times, locations, etc. And so it keeps them guessing. It makes our target harder.
So your answer to the RAND Corporation's recommendation that we have permanent inspection points, this is basically your answer to that?
Yes.
There are a couple of other things I'd like to bring up, and that is that since we're looking at the last decade of comparative public safety effort and presence at LAX, I think we can't leave out our federal partners here in that in 2000, TSA didn't even exist. Now, they're not law enforcement officers, but their entire reason for being is to ensure that there is security 24/7 at all of the terminals everywhere. And in fact, they even participate with us in our armor checkpoints. There are thousands of TSA personnel at the airport now that did not used to be there. Customs and Border Protection has also...
How do they communicate with you?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, they will have a place in the new Airport Response Coordination Center that I referenced. And currently, they communicate with me, at least. The police may have a different protocol on that, but they've just got all of my phone numbers. I have all of their phone numbers.
I mean, one of the contentions has also been that there's not good coordination between LAPD, airport police. Is there an opportunity to kind of regularly have, all hands on deck types of meetings with TSA, LAPD, airport police, LAWA management?
We do.
Do you have those regularly?
Yes. We have monthly meetings to address cargo ramp theft crime issues.
And is TSA a part of that?
LAPD, CBP are all part of that monthly meeting. And in that meeting, we share crime stats and strategies for addressing those crimes.
I'd also like to give you a little bit of assurance, and I'm going to use this as a platform to ask the chief to introduce our newest member of our team, Assistant Chief Ethel McGuire, who has just joined us as our Assistant Chief of Homeland Security. You want to stand up, Ethel? We are delighted to have her, and we feel very fortunate to have gotten her. The chief will give you a little bit of her background, and then I'd like to tell you about the connections that serendipitously she is going to provide and strengthen for us.
Ethel served 23 years with the FBI and retired in 2008. She's not new to Los Angeles, and in fact, she was the Assistant Special Agent in charge for the Counterterrorism Division from 2005 to 2008 here. And then she was promoted and went to Washington, D.C., where she was the section chief for the Strategic Information and Operations Center there in D.C. She comes with us with a vast amount of knowledge, both in the area of counterterrorism, terrorism, and management oversight. I'd let her speak some more. She's glad to be here.
Okay, well, if we have specific questions,
Yeah.
we'll ask her. Two more things, and I'll let you guys jump in. One of the things I was going to ask was about the Israeli study and the consultants. Are they still on board? What have we done with some of their recommendations?
I think it was about a year and a half ago that was the last time they came over and did a run through and kind of a check on what we were doing, gave us some feedback. The biggest single feedback they had was, you really should get the bollards, some kind of barriers throughout the central terminal area. We'd be happy to have them come back. They're a terrific resource.
And I still stay in contact with them, as a matter of fact.
Right.
They also highlighted the need for improvement on the perimeter fences, which of course we're doing, and the cameras, as many new cameras as we can put in.
What's interesting is about your comments, Mr. LaBonge. It's true, technology certainly sometimes does what humans can't do, but when I went on the security trip to Israel with the port a few years back, from the highest level of security in Israel, the one lesson that I came away with was nothing substitutes for human eyeballing of a situation, person to person. That's why when you check into El Al, it's a very different check-in process in terms of security. They look you in the eye. They ask you different kinds of questions. I mean, the message that what I got from them is they train their law enforcement folks from day one to look into a person's face, sense things. There's nothing substitutes for human contact, human suspicion, intuition, something's wrong, which I think brings up the concern, and if you guys want to follow up on that, of not having the presence like we would like to see of police officers in the terminals, because cameras are one thing, but for me, nothing will ever substitute for these men and women, these officers, checking out a situation, feeling a situation, looking at someone. That's how I believe ultimately we've been able to, so far, I think, prevent a major incident at our airport.
May I just make one more point in an effort to completely answer your question about the Israeli team? We should note, since you were very interested in the armor program, they were very interested in the armor program, and they were very impressed with the program that had been put in place in an attempt to be sure that we only had authorized vehicles that didn't have any bad stuff in them coming in.
Okay.
Let me ask one big question. If there was an incident at LAX right now as we're sitting here in the room, who is in charge? Is it TSA? Is it LAPD? Is it the LAWA officers? Who makes the ultimate decisions on how we operate if a crisis emergency came?
Well, the airport police department is going to be in charge, at least initially. It depends on the nature of the event as to who would be in charge long term. Some of these are federal crimes. Some of these, if it's a bomb squad response, it's LAPD that will take the lead in that. So it depends. But we're very clear on what those protocols are based on what the event is.
The way it's supposed to work is airport police are incident management.
Right.
So we are the first responders, and we are charged with stabilizing the incident. If it's an aircraft in the air kind of incident, it becomes the FBI's. If it is on the ground, such as an aircraft crash, it becomes NTSB and LA Fire Department. But we always operate out of NIMS and SIMS and a unified command, so that when we set up a command post, we have a number of players that are the decision makers in a unified command to best move through that emergency scenario. So it is a collaboration, it's a unified command, and that's what NIMS is all about.
Okay, in that collaboration, NIMS, unified command, what if there is a terrorist, a human being, driving up in some kind of a fashion, wanting to do damage? Who is the first responder with that person coming into the airport mix?
In that scenario, if you have an active shooter, an active scenario, it would be whoever is there. So if it's an LAPD officer, absolutely. If it's an LAX officer or a TSA, the first course of action is to stabilize and neutralize the threat. So that would be whoever has their first encounter. We currently train with the LAPD on their MACTAC scenario, which is a multiple attack threat scenario, which they just recently implemented and that we are part of. After that, after the incident is stabilized, then we would move into incident stabilization, investigation. If it was a terrorist threat, it would be the FBI that does the investigation, etc.
I would
Well,
also
let me
add
just
that-
ask, well, I got to bring up the Inglewood incident. Were we vulnerable if something were to have happened that some, like 30 officers were in Inglewood?
To answer your question, no. At that particular time, we actually had an overlap of shift. Now, I would be the first to tell you that should have never happened. We had a new sergeant who was very zealed, wanted to assist. I believe there were a total of 6 or 7 agencies from outside that also responded to the rave concert to assist Inglewood that was completely overwhelmed. We did not leave our back door open. We had plenty with even sending, I believe that there's some discrepancy on whether we sent 27 or 21. But we did not leave the back door open. We had actually 2 shifts on that at that particular time. We had an overlapping of shifts, and so we had a number of people there. We were also very close to the airport, so if something did happen, we were moments away to driving back to the airport to address the threat at the airport. But we did not leave the back door open.
What I'd like to know is LAPD, I see Captain Peters in the back of the room. If you could come up, Captain, representing LAPD, and explain to me, because you are the Pacific Division, you're responsible for Westchester, Playa del Rey,
Got Andy
all the way
Smith.
up through Del
We got
Rey,
Andy Smith, too.
and so on. And then we have Commander Smith as well, and we have another commander as well there. I'd just like to ask LAPD right now, flat out, how does the coordination, cooperation work with the airport police? Are you comfortable with the procedure? And I know that some of your officers that used to man podiums and do other things are now back under your command there. How do you see that relationship with the LAWA police?
Thank you, Councilman. I would say this.
For the record.
My name is John Peters. I'm the commanding officer for Pacific Area. I was brought there in January by the chief of police and specific marching orders that LAX is a priority for this department in terms of the safety and security of the traveling public. And that's been reinforced in the time that I've been there. But in terms of our relationship, I think it's improving all the time. Not only with myself being brought over there, but a couple of months ago we brought a subordinate captain who is the captain in charge of the LAX Field Services Division, which is Captain Phil Fontanetta. Phil happens to be on vacation today, but the reason I bring him up is Phil is a department expert and a nationally renowned expert in incident management and dealing with critical incidents. And I think it's part and parcel to the chief's high level of priority in terms of being able to prepare our people to deal with a critical incident there. I think that our relationship is improving all the time, and I think that if we look at another part of this, the crime piece, we're having great success. So from that standpoint, something's going right in terms of deployment, how we're interacting and how we're getting along. Just to give you an idea of the figures in terms of our Part 1 crime, year to date, we're down almost 13%, 12.83%. A vast majority of the crimes there at the airport are theft-related crimes, and those thefts are down almost 16%. So that's an indication, and the reason why that's important is my philosophy is that if we deal well and coordinate well with the small things, when a big event happens, that we're in a much better position to deal with that type of thing. Some of the other things that have occurred since myself and Phil have come over there is we have started engaging in a very robust training program. We recognize that if something major happens at that airport, or something major happens in the city of LA, similar to what happened in Mumbai, where we have multiple attacks occurring at different places throughout the city, the resources that are at the airport are going to be consumed very, very quickly, and then it's going to become a response from Pacific area. And then it's going to be a regional response, quite frankly, in terms of dealing with the issues. And so we're building a better plan to get us in a better position to deal with those types of issues. And in terms of the partnership, certainly meeting with the airport police on a regular basis, we have invited airport police personnel to a number of our major command posts, different incidents that have occurred here recently in the city, so that they have an idea of how that all works from a large perspective. Again, some of this stuff is a matter of practice. And so we're trying to build that in, and so when something happens, we have a common operating picture. The chief hit the nail on the head in terms of a unified command and how we respond to incidents, and that's how it works. And that's
once
the
and for all, how many LAPD officers are at LAX at any given time?
Ma'am, I don't know if, again, I'm reluctant to discuss that in an open session. I certainly have those numbers and would.
All right.
Yeah.
Actually, we never seem to be able to get that number.
I have that number and would share that with you, but again, I think that there's some security issues involved in that.
Ask how many are in Harbor Division. He is not going to tell you. You don't want to know that because
yeah, I know exactly how. There's not enough. Okay. I've always wanted to take some of those LAX.
Commander, let me just ask you this because the captain gave us his report. Historically, there's been a desire to integrate the airport police with LAPD in some circles, and then there's been other circles that have said the airport police having the priority there and the area relationship makes more sense. In your professional opinion, not politics, what is in the best interest of safety for us all there? Integration or the separate police departments?
I think we have, the LAPD brings a huge amount of resources there, but I think the LAWA PD are the real experts. It's what's going on inside of the airport there. And I think it's working out for us to have two agencies there that are merging. And anytime you have two agencies, as we all know, in a small environment like that, there's going to be a little bit of friction here and a little bit of friction there. Who gets what job or who gets what priority? But when we have an emergency, we form a unified command, and I think that's very effective. I think we both have a little bit different missions there, and I think the way it's working out now with continued efforts at improving our communication, improving our ability to work together, improving our training together. As John mentioned, we train together, and even the LAWA officers come through our police academy now, so they're completely familiar with LAPD's protocol and how we manage things. I think we have a little bit of work to do in terms of getting along better as far as communication and working together, but I think it's working out well having two separate entities there personally.
The hybrid works and we feel safe with this present strategy.
I do, and I'm very happy that John Peters is over there, and I'm very, very happy that Phil Fontenette is over there. I think we're putting a cream of our crop of our captains in that position because I think Chief Beck recognizes how critical the security is at the airport.
As a matter of fact, there was a CTI study done in 2005 that, after a great deal of analysis, advised us not to merge airport police with LAPD because of a lot of things that we're talking about.
An important item that we haven't mentioned yet with respect to LAPD also is their K-9 and bomb squad, which they're there all the time, and LAX has more dogs than probably by double any other major airport around, and that's been a great deterrent for us.
We are the largest in the country
Okay.
Just real quick on some things, Ms. Hahn. Training is so important in everything that we do. I think I second what Commander Smith said, because this is a big city, and it has operations and specialties. I know in my own district, there's Griffith Park. They call the fire department when there's a fire, but they meet the rangers at the trailhead, and the fire department takes command and goes into the fire. Same thing could be true at LAX. The big thing I wanted to say is on cameras. I also want cameras on Sepulveda, on the off-ramps, on every entrance vehicle-wise, because the big thing is cameras. I think if we look at that, and we didn't mention CHP because I know the state has a highway there as well. And also, I say this to the command center that you plan to build. Is that physically inside or west of Sepulveda, or is it outside? Or is
It's
it bit
west of
determined?
Sepulveda and between the two airfields.
Yeah,
And I'd
but
rather be
north,
more specific.
I got it. All right, but I'm just saying to make sure it's the right location, because often, sometimes it's in the center of the location, then if there's an incident, it's tough to get there, make sure it's on the outside, but you figure that out. Lastly, Chief Mike Downing's the head of intelligence for LAPD, and every time I see him, I tell him motor officers are going to catch Ben and Al before he does. You know who Ben and Al is? Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. And they'll catch him coming up La Brea, doing a gutter run at 3rd, and they'll blow the light. Motor officers are real important. Bike officers, that whole mixture is so important. And also, as you said, too, I was in Vancouver coming home, and the United States Customs is in Vancouver. You check in there, and all their computers were down. And then an officer who was in charge, and it was hours, and there was no talk, and it's weird when you look at a screen, and nobody's talking, everybody's worried. The computer's broke. The officer in charge said, use your senses and get all these people through here. And they obviously gambled, but they used their senses.
That's right.
And lastly, I want to welcome an agent from the FBI to the L.A. airport team. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Zine.
Thank you. The Captain, you said that the relationship's improving, and Commander, I will quote from one of the articles, one of the letters I received. I do not know what the reason is why we have a CSU team if they are not going to work with LAPD. And I'm not going to use the person's name. This individual's made it clear that he will not work with LAPD and does not take any direction from any LAPD supervisors. There clearly is an issue regarding the relationship. And while you say it's improving, and I respect you for that, LAPD has been there for a long time. LAWA police have been there for a long time, and they need to have a solid relationship. And people don't care if they're wearing an LAPD badge or a LAWA badge that represent law enforcement. And when people go to LAX, they want to be safe, and they don't care what agency is protecting them. So that relationship has to be rebuilt. And at one time, I think it was very strong, but somehow it deteriorated. And I tell the LAWA personnel, before they go to the media with an issue, because they think no one is handling it, come to one of the council members, Ms. Hahn, who chairs this committee, Mr. Rosendahl, or any of us. We will be more than happy to respond to it. The concern that illustrated this was brought about by the media that did an investigative report, and I want to commend them for bringing it to public light. But we're not going to ignore anything. And I know the folks at LAWA, the dedicated members of the police department, and other folks there want to keep it safe. But we don't need to ignore the problems if there are problems occurring. If the doors are blocked, that's a problem. If the officers aren't doing what they're supposed to do, that's a problem. But the fact of the matter is we're here to make sure that it works better for everyone, and ultimately the security of the traveling public. That's what it's all about. So I will commit myself with the knowledge and the experience I have, and also as a member of the Public Safety Committee to assist with it. And I know, Ms. Chair, we have a representative from the State Assembly. We want to have an opportunity for him because we're coming up on 10 o'clock.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Zine. I know how to run my committee, and I can see the clock.
Go to council. You don't want to be late again.
And I think you're absolutely right, and this is a big concern. But I do think, certainly the men and women in our law enforcement agencies, both LAPD and certainly airport police, should be commended because, again, so far, knock on wood, we have been able to, through good police work, through good, sensing, through good, really vigilance, we have prevented, a major incident at that airport. We want to be ready. Obviously, if something were to happen, we want to be coordinated. But we certainly want to prevent it. And I have, at this point, no reason to doubt our leadership. I have no reason at this point to doubt the good police work that's going on out there. But we've had some troubling things brought to light through private letters, through private conversations, certainly through KNX investigative report, that we cannot ignore. What I was going to ask you, Gina Marie, is this a good time to initiate another third-party independent review of our security measures at LAX, either with the consultants from Israel or a CTI type? I know, honestly, on the record, I'm not a big fan of RAND. Honestly, they're not security experts. They're a think tank that gets paid to do reports on whatever the funder asks them to do. So I don't have complete confidence in RAND, but I do think maybe it's an opportunity to sort of clear the air with a third-party independent review. So I would like to ask you maybe to come back with some suggestions on how we might do that.
I'm happy to do that, and I think this is a good time. Very proud of what the women and men do to ensure the public safety of the travelers at LAX. With the combined assistance of LAX police, LAPD, and all of the federal agencies, I'd love to have an independent study done.
Good. Why don't we continue this item, colleagues, in this committee? Maybe you could, just...
I need to give you some timelines on that.
Give me some timelines.
Realistic procurement issues.
Yeah, right. But I think it's appropriate now. I think there's enough stuff out there that it would serve us well. It would serve the traveling public well, but certainly those of us who are responsible as well as you to maybe, again, have a good outside independent survey of our security measures, not breaching any security issues with the stuff that gets reported. But I have no doubt that this would be helpful. It would be appropriate. And if there's anything that we need to implement as a result of that, I don't have any doubt that we have the will to do that.
Agreed.
And I just say we should look at it too, like every 2 years we should do this, or every 3 years, every 36 months. Let's pick a number that we do this in the future, because this should not be a surprise to anybody. And also a great part of the equation is the Los Angeles Fire Department. I just want to have one question. Is there a fire inspector
We haven't really talked about
often in the LAX? Because the thing I did like is that doors were, at least in this report, were locked by that. And if I don't know if
I think we need to let the LA Fire Department
Chief
address
Storms,
that.
you want to mention that at all, just to have that so that there's a continuation of inspection? Chief, just real.
Chief Storms, Assistant Fire Marshal, just real quickly, there is a full-time new construction inspector on the property every day, and there is a inspector responsible for all other occupied buildings on the
Every
LA
day?
property. He's there probably 9 out of 10 days. He does assist with other.
The 980?
But yeah.
How could these corridors have been missed then if there is someone out there checking for these kinds of public access?
Most of these issues, of the 13 issues, I believe 10 of them were housekeeping issues, painting, ladders, storage, movable items that are used on a day-to-day basis, almost similar to cleaning your house, and clutter comes back. There's about 200, somewhere between 160 and 100 or 200 exits in all of those terminals. It's impossible to see them every day, but we've made a commitment to do inspections on a weekly basis. And operations from airport, we've been doing training programs with them. We did a complete inspection of every terminal and every exit, and we're very comfortable with the situation right now, and we're going to work closely with airport operations to move forward with a more comprehensive and intense review of the exiting.
Right, because that was obviously something brought to light that caused extreme anxiety on all of our parts. Again, It's nice to think that we have all the time in the world, weekly inspections, we're on top of it, but we know that if something were to happen, it's going to happen in a moment.
Right,
And at that point, corridors need to be open, need to be clear. You need to have the greatest access for the public to.
It needs to be a cultural change on the importance of those exiting. Those photographs appear to have taken place over about 18-month period, but they still are representative of an issue that has been an ongoing issue there. It's just a housekeeping with all the construction that's going on. It's something we have to stay on top of. The inspections were done on an annual basis prior to this. We're going to make a commitment to be there on a weekly basis to assure that those exitings, especially during this construction time.
Thank you. Gina Marie was going to answer.
I just want you to know that partnership is key here. Deputy Executive Director Jacqueline Yaft, with her operations people who are there all the time, so they can be eyes and ears, have really stepped up not only a training program, but a set of requirements on our operations supervisors to be sure they are looking for the same things the fire department would be looking for.
You got to think about everything, all times. You've got to think, if something were to happen every single day, is this airport ready? Is it safe? Is it, free of clutter so people can flee if they need to? I mean, you just, unfortunately, it's just human nature, I think, to get into a feeling of, just sort of relaxing. But you guys got to wake up every single day and worry about the safety of everyone who sets foot in that airport.
Ms. Hahn and Mr. Rothenberg, I'm going to go to council. I'll call upstairs if they need a quorum. You can
Fine.
get to the meeting. Last thing, I want to take your suggestion.
Yes.
And maybe that they have every 36 months, do a major review. And also, when we were kids in Los Angeles, Gina Marie, the last Friday of the month, they had air raid sirens, and they went off. I think we should have something that are points to do drills in schools, the drop drills
Yeah.
that was in the.
Right.
Maybe there needs to be some schedules that we look at.
Right. And we're going to have Marshall McLean just come up on the record. But I will say, with the every 36 months, again, I think that would go back to, I think everything should be random. Everything should be unsuspected, whether it's a review, whether it's an inspection. I don't think we should do anything regularly, because then I think we fall back into that.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
I agree with you.
But I think that it is time now, and I would ask you to come back with recommendations on a third party.
We agree and we will.
Right, okay. Mr. McLean, you started this.
Good morning, ma'am. I didn't start it, I just got involved in it. Got a little bit of a cold, so apologize. First off, as far as the letter that got everyone stirred up, like what I said before, it wasn't a letter meant for the public. It was a letter that was sent out to our chief of police. During this time, in the past, I'd say 2 weeks, been ongoing meetings with my director here, as well as Mike Molina, and they've made a commitment to have continuing ongoing dialogue to address the concerns, and we're confident that that's going to happen. Bringing in the new assistant chief is definitely a testament that we're going to be moving in the right direction.
So we can be comfortable that your letter that you and Julie Butcher signed, that these issues now have been addressed and your concerns have been resolved?
I'm confident that they are being addressed.
They're being
that
addressed.
That it is ongoing dialogue to make sure that both sides come to, I'd say, an agreement that the airport will be the safest airport, actually all the airports that we supervise and manage, because it's not just LAX, it's Ontario and Van Nuys.
You're not saying that it is right now, okay?
I'm saying with all the dialogue that we've had, I'm confident that we will be there.
That we will be there.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
My statement from day one is that we always want to do more with more. So the question was, do we have enough officers? Do we have enough equipment? Do we have all those things? And that's what the dialogue is right now. Like I said, this wasn't meant to be out in a public forum. This was meant to be in-house. And now I'm happy that we are actually having that discussion.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to a report back, obviously, to answer that question. That will be, but yes, we are working, coordinating, and we're one big team, and things are in good shape. I'm looking forward to that. And if there's anything we as a committee need to do in our oversight role, please Madam Director, let us know what we need to do. And just one last thing, in the KNX photos, are we now every day in every door making sure that those emergency entrances and exits are accessible to the public?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right.
Thank you. Well, I certainly appreciate all of this. We always appreciate any of these kinds of things being brought to the public. We can always probably do more. We can always do better. Every time we look at the safety and security of LAX, it's a snapshot. It's a moment. It's right now, today. And we can't at all rest on our laurels. We have to keep trying, keep doing it. But again, I have complete faith in the men and women of the LAX Police Department. I have complete faith in the men and women of the LAPD. And I have, at this moment, faith in our leadership. But that doesn't mean that, we've got to, again, every day, make sure that the traveling passengers, as well as the men and women who are in law enforcement, are safe and secure, and we've done everything we can. We're still a vulnerable target, in my opinion. It's still on the list as one of the top targets. So that's a huge burden and a huge responsibility for all of us.
And let me just say, Ted Lieu has been here because he's observing it. He's the assembly member for that area, has taken a great interest in LAX. He's also a pilot, and he's provided great leadership with the Santa Monica Airport and all of the issues we face there. We have a resolution that we'll be discussing next week in council that he's putting before the state senate after it passed the state assembly. Thank you for observing.
Yes, and we need partners. We need federal partners, state partners in making sure that this gateway is indeed safe and secure.
Mr. Rosendale, or Councilmember Rosendale, you voiced a concern over what you saw when you walked at the CT. I'd be happy to be able to walk you again and show you where our officers are deployed and why they're deployed the way they are. It's very strategic in our deployment. It meets a greater service to the overall security of the airport, and I think once you learn why we do what we do, you'll be happy with it.
Chief, I appreciate you saying that, but as a lay person, I can tell you that other airports I've been to, I see a lot more visibility of officers, and I know there's a psychic sense that visibility can deter, at least mentally, in people's mind, oh, there's a cop there. So we were very concerned about what that suggested when we didn't see that kind of visibility.
Actually, I have a different experience. I traveled a lot last year. I was in a lot of airports in the state of California, and I didn't. I always see more police officers at LAX than I did in all the other airports. I traveled to Oakland, to San Diego, to San Francisco, to San Jose, and I will tell you, I always look for stuff like that, and I did not see more uniformed police officers in those airports that I do at LAX. I always see police officers at LAX when I go there, but again, it's a moment in time. Right. It's a moment in time. It's whenever you're there versus whenever I'm there. But if you'd like to share that deployment protocol and strategy with council member, I think that would be important.
I look forward to that.
Okay, we have 2 comments, then we got to go. I have Madrid Patrick and Jason Elias. I'm going to give you 2 minutes each. Ooh, am I the lucky girl? Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's Mario Patrick, for the
I'm
record.
sorry.
That's okay.
What did
I will
say?
be brief because I see the clock is running.
Penmanship.
My name is Mario Patrick. I'm a lieutenant with the Los Angeles Airport Police. I'm also vice president of the Los Angeles Airport Police Supervisors Association. LOPSA represents the almost 100 supervisors, sergeants, and lieutenants that oversee the daily operations of uniformed officers and specialized units at LAX. Prior to working at LAX, I was a lieutenant here for the Department of General Services, currently OPS, where my job duties included, but were not limited to, protecting the men and women of the Los Angeles City Council, as well as protecting the mayor's office and the numerous visitors to the Civic Center in and around downtown Los Angeles. I held that position for 3 years before transferring to LAX as a lieutenant. Let it be noted, let me state that protecting an international airport the size of LAX in a post-9/11 world remains a constant challenge. But we remain a dynamic agency that is up to that challenge. There are many situations or times when we may take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. But the Los Angeles Airport Police remains committed to improving our policing efforts at the airport police. There's always room to improve upon our already great workforce. The men and women of the Los Angeles Airport Police continue to march forward, doing a great job each day. Let me also remind you that international and national incidents also affect how we deploy to protect the LAX. Understanding, and it should be noted, that the airport police has been protecting LAX through Iraqi Freedom, Desert Storm, Operation Desert Shield, the first World Trade Center bombing attempt, 9/11, the DNC, the 1992 riots, the Unabomber, the Oklahoma City bomber, the subway bombings in the UK and Ireland, the subway bombings in Spain. Throughout all these international and national incidents, the Los Angeles airport has remained safe for those that work there and travel through there. I remind you that the Los Angeles Airport Police is at the cutting edge of aviation law enforcement, and we wish to remain that way.
Thank you very much, Mario.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Good morning.
That was perfect.
I'll be very brief. Jason Elias with SEIU Local 721. As you mentioned, we represent the 350 or so non-sworn officers at the airport. Every single vehicle that enters the airfield are inspected by our members. Airport police officers that inspect vehicles going into the central terminal area are accompanied by security officers. All that to say, Julie and our union did co-sign the letter. I've been out of town, so not in the mix. And Julie, as you know, her son was, shot and killed, and has been recuperating and finding herself for that. But just to say that in any discussions that are happening, and I'm glad that Marshall and the airport police officers have been meeting with Mike Molina and Gina Marie. We want to be at that table. I wish I could have spoken when Gina Marie was in the room, just to say that I'm also confident that our issues can be addressed. I think we're moving in the right direction with the leadership team that is being brought into airport police, and we hope we can continue to build on that relationship. We do think that there are challenges, but as Marshall said, we're moving in the right direction.
So by your comment, have you not been at the table?
We have not been at the table in those discussions. In fact, when I went out of town about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, Marshall had not gotten a response on the letter. I think things have changed because of the KNX, the KNX work that they have done, and we thank them for that work. But as I spoke to Marshall walking into the room, he said we're moving in the right direction,
right?
And I'm happy to hear that.
Right. Thank you, Jason. And certainly we do appreciate any kind of public media that brings to light things that are of concern. But my wish, certainly, Mr. Mike Molina, along with Gina Marie, is that anytime you get concerns from, our partners at this airport, that you respond timely, you bring people immediately to the table, and we don't have to hear it on KNX.
Mike Molina, Deputy Executive Director. We completely agree. The communication with Marshall McLean began before the KNX story.
Okay.
Thank you.
And can I have your assurance that you will bring Jason to the proverbial table?
Anytime.
As soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay, colleagues.
Thank you.
Who's left? I thought we would hold 2 and 3 in this committee. I would ask, Mike, that you begin the process of looking at a third-party independent review of security. And item 4, of course, was the LAFD corridor issues. It would be my wish that would even maybe be a part of the scope of the independent review. I think you should roll both of those in, and then we can kind of address that. So we'll hold those items in our committee until we get further information on this independent third-party audit. Yeah, well, when's our next meeting? Is it after recess? Yeah, that's probably too soon. So maybe in September. In September, Mike, do you think we will have some information on this potential review?
In September?
Mm-hmm.
We'll have preliminary information, sure.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I'd like to go into closed session when we go into that on some of the issues that we couldn't talk about in open session.
Fine. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address this committee? Seeing no. Have you turned in a card? Okay, well, you can come forward. State your name for the record, and we'll give you a card to fill out, just for our records.
My name's Esau Wilder. I'm a security officer at LAX. I'm the brown and green uniform that you see that are non-sworn. I've only been at the airport a little over a year and a half, and I have seen some things that really bother me.
Okay.
Because I've been in this business, security business, since 1972. And I just retired from the aerospace industry after 27 years and came up to LAX. Now, you were talking about security. There are some corridors in the Tom Bradley terminal that, to get into them on the inside, it says authorized personnel only. Well, there are emergency exits that lead out to the general public that are not alarmed. There's no sounding hardware on them. People use them as shortcuts to go to the parking lot to get their cars or whatever. What's to prevent someone from getting together with somebody who wants to do some damage and said, hey, meet me at such a time, I'll let you in this door, because there's no way of warning anybody that this door is being opened.
Have you brought that?
I was just going to ask, have you brought that to the attention of anybody?
Yeah, but it seems to go no place.
Okay.
And
well, this is the place.
If there were like mags on these doors, if like they are to go into the secure areas or going out onto the airfield, have something that makes a noise, go off, or an alarm that tells the whoever monitors the alarm that, hey, this door's been opened, and send somebody to investigate.
Okay. We appreciate that. Boy, just when we thought we were ending, this is a pretty serious issue. Chief and Gina Marie, would you like to respond to that?
This is the first that we've heard of it.
Okay. Please come up on the record.
This is the first that I've heard of this concern. We do have the commander of their traffic and security in the room here. Asked him. He's not heard of this. So this is something we certainly are interested in looking at, and we'll be happy to address it.
Thank you very much. Well, we appreciate you bringing it to. This hearing was on these issues. We appreciate you saying this. Again, this goes back to my contention that it's the eyes and ears of those who are there on the ground doing the work day in and day out that could point out issues of vulnerability. Can we expect that you will deal with this and make recommendations by our September meeting on this issue, one way or the other? Yes. Thank you.
And we'd like you to come back in a month and tell us if you're comfortable or not that they have followed through with what you've just said.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to address this committee?
Madam Chair.
And then we have to go. Yes.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, are you asking them to come back on September 1st? Or
No.
the 18th?
I think more like September 18th. Thank you. That sounds better to me. Fine. Okay. We're going to have to wrap this committee up. Did you guys fill out cards?
No, I did not.
Well, this is a hearing, so if you'd like to address this committee, but then, did you want to say something too? Yeah, both of you, and then the man in the back. Let's just come up briefly.
Chairs.
What's going on in council? I don't know.
Right. Good morning, ma'am, members of the committee.
The record, Captain.
My name is Greg Starr. I'm a captain with the Airport Police Department. I have our traffic and security section. And for the record, I'd like to read a letter that we wrote that was signed by all of the members of the command staff at the Airport Police Department. And it's addressed to you, Madam Council Member. It says, Dear Council Member Hahn, the undersigned are commanding officers with the LA Airport PD of responsibility for leading significant safety and security operational and support activities at LAWA. We are writing today to express our full and undivided support for the commitment of LAWA and the visionary leadership of Executive Director Gina Marie Lindsay and Chief of Police George Centeno to LAWA's safety and security mission. LAWA's commitment to the critical mission has been demonstrated through allocation of significant resources to identify, deter, and defeat attempts to breach the security of its airports and the global aviation security system. By measures such as total safety and security budgets, personnel levels, training, technology, LAWA has demonstrated a strong commitment to public safety, counterterrorism strategies, and the well-being of the traveling public. This commitment is particularly noteworthy given the significant economic challenges facing the country over the last 2 years. It's truly an honor and a privilege to serve the city and this organization under the leadership of Ms. Lindsay and Chief Centeno. This is signed by Chief Ethel McGuire, Chief Brian Walker, Senior Management Analyst 2 Dana Brown, myself, Captain Greg Starr, Chief Dan Lindsay, who runs our operations at the Ontario Airport, Captain Tyrone Stallings, Captain Carolyn Smith, and Beatrice Stevens Ford, Senior Management Analyst 1, who runs our security badge office.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's certainly a vote of confidence.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Your name for the record.
My name is Henry Purvis. I'm a security officer at LAX Airport Police Division. I work AM Watch, and I've been at the Airport Police for 10 years. I also served 3 years here at General Services Security Police before I transferred. I'm also a chief shop steward with SEIU 721, and I'm on the AM Watch. Now, I also talked with Marshall McLean. We were at checkpoints together. I really, I like what I heard here, and if this is really looking forward to working with management to correct these things. I know it's a little thing was kind of glossed over a little bit. I work on what we call the access post side. Okay,
What does that mean?
That's the checkpoints that we authorize vehicles and people to enter the airfield.
Right.
We do vehicle checks all the time. Since we've been mandated by TSA after 9/11, all vehicles except fire, police, government vehicles. And you know, I have brought some issues. I do credit Gina Marie coming to one of our roll call meetings on Day Watch, which I've been here 10 years, and that's the first time I've seen come. So I appreciate that. There's issues that have been brought, and I won't bring. I just want to see if they're going to be taken care of. So I have an optimistic viewpoint, and my Jason says, you know, since we're at the table, we'll wait and see. So I thank you for bringing this. That it came out the way it did, but and the access posts are very important.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear about that because terrorists can come through the access posts, and we've had almost breaches where they can get to the aircraft and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. I appreciate you.
I thank you very much.
I thank you for coming up and having the courage to speak up.
Thank you.
Again, this goes back to everyone. We got men and women on the ground in places where we have given them the authority to look at security. It feels like maybe some of these suggestions, some of these concerns have not really found a place to go. So I would encourage you to, really get that working group or the regular all-hands-on-deck meeting, and I think you definitely should have at the table the non-sworn security officers. I think they see a lot on a daily basis, and they need a safe place, so to speak, to bring these concerns. And I like the fact that they are out there and they're seeing things of concern. It can't be perfect all the time. Let's listen to those who have the biggest stake in the security of our airport, and that's the men and women who are doing the job. Let's find a place for them to bring their concerns in a safe way that we can address it and implement corrections if need be. That would make me happy. So by September, we want to report back from Gina Marie and Mike on the idea of a third-party audit. And also, I would like for a report back on that day on how this sort of proverbial table is being implemented and working to get everybody's concerns out in the open and addressed in a timely manner. Does that make sense? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Rosendahl?
Let's move it to the 18th. Is that it?
No,
Yeah.
actually, it's this 15th, September 15th.
September 15th.
September 15th.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm afraid to ask this question. Anybody else wanting to address this committee? Seeing none, this meeting is